Have you ever wondered what qualities or characteristics or traits do those Fortune 500 CEOs or senior executives have that maybe you have or don't have? Hey, it's Russ. As many of you know, I have the chance in my job to interact with, observe, coach, and consult with thousands of leaders in all kinds of industries around the world. Many of those leaders are top executives of Fortune 500 companies. In those years of working with and coaching and observing those leaders, I've discovered two traits, qualities, or characteristics that these very successful leaders have. I want to talk about those two in this video today. The first one is they can define and describe the destination they're headed toward or that they're taking their team or organization to. You see, sometimes you ask people, what are your goals? Or what are the results you're trying to achieve? And they think for a minute and they wonder. And then sometimes they might even ask you, can I give you a little bit more time? Or what exactly do you mean by that question? Really successful people don't react to that question that way. You see, they've spent time defining what the destination is that they're working toward or trying to get to. Usually that comes in the form of 2 or 3 metrics that are really important, that they're trying to move in a significant way. Let me give you an example of this. One of the organizations we started working with a few years ago is a hospital in the Washington, D.C. area. At the time that they asked us to start working with the leadership team, the CEO, she had just taken over the reins of this hospital, over the leadership position, the top leadership position at this hospital. The hospital truly was a mess. In fact, it was so bad that many of the patients, at least far too many of them, were getting injured while at the hospital. The place they're going, it's not funny, but it's crazy. The place they're going to get healed, they're walking out of either having suffered from a fall while walking to the bathroom in their hospital room, or they've gotten an infection inside the hospital. So the CEO, one of the first things she did as the leader of this hospital is define and describe what success in the short term looked like. For her, it was an adjustment, a change, a shift in the hospital patient safety metrics. They needed to make a change. Within just a few months, the change was dramatic. The second thing she did after they got patient safety fixed, manageable and at a reasonable rate, is she started describing and defining for people where they were headed to next. Not only were they not going to injure or hurt the patients that were being admitted, but they were going to impact the patient experience metric that's so critical to hospitals in North America. You see, they survey patients after they leave the hospital, and that metric's critically important to hospitals. So she described for people, we're going to go from this level of patient satisfaction scores to that level, and we're going to do it within this particular time period. Well, what she described happened. In fact, that hospital experienced so much success that she went from having stewardship or responsibility for one hospital to having responsibility for several hospitals. One of the largest hospitals in the Washington, D.C. area, she is now the CEO of. Successful people define and can describe and often describe to their teams what the destination is they're headed to. Here's the second characteristic, trait, quality of successful people based on what I've observed interacting with a ton of them over the last several years. Successful people do not become consumed by things they can't control. Said differently, successful people focus on only what they can control. How many people do you know at the place that you work or in your family or friend group who talk about, obsess with, and are consumed by things they don't control? And they end up being stuck because their attention, their energy, their focus is on things they can't impact. Successful people focus on what they can control. Let me give you an example of this. A friend of mine, former employee of mine, several years ago, he ended up getting fired from the company he worked at. I'll forever remember the phone call he made to me just moments after he was fired by this company. He was devastated. It was like the life went out of him. Their decision to fire him was this judgment in his mind of his skills and abilities that it didn't matter how much you talked to him and tried to boost him up, he was devastated. He went home, talked to his wife, the kids they had recently adopted. He had, in the previous years before that, suffered significant health problems. They had all kinds of medical bills. His world was collapsing around him. Did he grieve? He totally grieved. Did he mourn and went through a period of darkness? He absolutely did. In fact, in one of my podcast episodes, it's episode number 3 of the Decide to Lead podcast, I interview him and he talks about how dark those days became. But that's not where the story ended. He went to work. After that period of mourning and grieving, he started to focus on what he could control. That's what successful people do. So he started to build a business. He never wanted to be fired by anyone else ever again. And so he decided the only way that could happen is if he owned the company. And so from his home office, he built within 1 year an organization, a company that did 7 figures in revenue, over $1 million. Today, that company does multiple millions of dollars in revenue every year. It's incredibly successful. Successful people focus their energy, their time, their conversations on what they can control. They don't obsess with things that are out of their control. So, 2 quick qualities or traits I wanted to share with you in this video. If you're interested in diving deeper into this topic, I've got a mini course. There's no catch to it. It's absolutely free. It's just on my website because this is stuff I geek out about. If you're interested in digging deeper into this topic, these 2 traits or characteristics I shared with you in this video are actually a subset of 5 characteristics that I've discovered highly productive, highly successful people have. And there's a link in the description below if you want to dig deeper into this topic about what makes people so successful.